Hey guys, welcome to Rising Stars. I'm your interim host, Sean Watt. Michael's away for a little bit, so I'll be hosting for the next few episodes. This production is sponsored by Urban Eats MTL. Our production, it's about supporting the local artist here in Montreal. It's trying to get in the mindset of how they prepare for roles, where they've come from, etc., etc., etc. Without further ado, guys, I have the honor to present you Daniel.
Hey.
How you doing, man?
Doing all right. Doing
Yeah,
all right.
everything all right? Yeah, no
me.
problem. So, how long have you been acting for?
Well, I guess you could say consistently now for maybe like 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So you're just a baby out of the gate right now?
Yeah, baby face.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, it's been a little bit more of like an on and off kind of thing, but mostly consistently for the last like 2 years.
So on and off, what happened in between? So when you started, was it just on and off as well, or?
I started I started doing like theater and everything back when I was back in like high school, high school productions, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And improv teams and all of that stuff. And then, after that happened, you have to go and do, let's say, like a professional kind of university program.
Yeah, it's usually parents' wishes.
Yeah, that's
usually
pretty much
if they're good
it.
parents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like doing the sciences and social sciences.
So what are you
all
doing
that
right
stuff.
now then for the professional career?
Right now, so I'm doing acting, so I'm represented in everything. But in terms of like part-time gigs and and part-time jobs, like I have something on the side. Just to help
So
keep
like a
things
day job.
afloat.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, pretty much it.
That's what I have as well. With,
It helps, I think.
Yeah, just to pay the bills once in a while. You
Yeah.
know? No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. That's it.
So, how did you get into acting?
So when I came back into it, really, it was I don't know. It was like one of those things where after going through, I guess, like studying and everything for about like 3 or 4 or 5 years, there was always this like bit of not a nagging feeling, but there was something that was sort of
Missing?
It just felt like I don't know. It felt missing. That's pretty much it. It felt missing, and so I've always had a buddy of mine. We did acting together. We started together in high school.
Nice.
He continued the whole way through.
Okay.
And so I was on and off. So I reconnected with him for a little bit, and he just said to me, we were just talking and all of that, and he's just like, maybe you should try like doing, I don't know, like an improv class or something like that.
Yeah.
And so
nice.
that was about like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago. And since then, it's been like a slow sort of like. I guess a gradual back into
like progress kind of.
There you go.
going
That's pretty
towards
much it. That's pretty much it.
So you specialize. It seems like improv. It sounds of it.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I haven't done shows recently, but I was doing many shows for MTL Improv. I'm not sure if we're. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, I do know it. I did a show for them called 50/50.
Oh, I did the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
Was that like last year or like 2 summers ago? Because I might have seen you
I
on
think
the same
so.
set.
I was there.
Yeah.
Like, who'd you do it with?
I can't remember his name, but
Okay.
I decided that I was playing sort of the jerk. So at first,
Yeah.
prior to going on stage, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I know my lines, I know which character I want to do, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just make things interesting. It's
Yeah.
obviously it's all about the star of the show, who's the improviser.
Exactly.
So I was like, I'm just gonna play the contrast. He's gonna be funny. I'm gonna be a jerk, and let's see what's gonna happen with it. So I started interacting with the audience too.
Oh, okay.
So, because I've
Yeah.
been to those improv shows and you're on stage, you're acting like the audience isn't there, but they are there and you hear them laughing. So my thought was, I'm going to think outside of the box.
Okay.
So when there are moments where I need to reach for like a book,
Yep.
I'm going to go along the audience in the front row and pretend that they're the bookshelf, and then I'll pick something from there. Or
I like
I'd
that.
point them,
I like that.
I'd point at them, or, oh, you mean wear like something like that? And I'd point at someone who's wearing something horrendous, and they go so red. They're
singling
so
them out, pretty
red.
much.
Yeah, it's like they're so red, and everyone starts laughing because that's what it's about. For me, as an actor, it's, live productions like that, it's bringing them on the journey with me.
That's a thing.
It's immersing them into the production, and that's an experience that it's unforgettable.
I like that because like it is one thing to be like, oh, the audience is there, but then you're sort of being like a little bit disconnected.
You're being
but
shady.
There
Let's call it shady.
You're like, let's just pretend that they're not kind of here, kind of
I
thing.
ain't cold like that. I ain't American. I ain't Canadian. Come on.
But no, I love that the 50/50 show is so fun. I think I was. I had
Were you
pleasure
the
to-
improviser or were you the actor?
I was only the actor I've did it twice.
Okay.
I was the actor both times. As the improvisers, I don't know. It's I always have grand appreciation and like
they're good.
respect for them
They're
because
good.
it's just like when you're coming into it, you know their lines and everything. You're like, well, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
But it's really fun.
But they make it work. That's why they're the stars of the show.
That's the thing.
Right? They're so good.
They are. They
It's
really
fascinating.
Are. It's I'm guessing like have you been there recently or not so much?
No, so I've done some classes with them, level 1, level 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
During level 2 I dropped out actually because I was really just seeing if I could improvise in general just for acting purposes to add on my CV. And as soon as I was like a couple classes in level 2, I was like, I already know how to improv. It's just a matter of knowing your character and just putting off the dialogue, right?
That's
so
it, going forward with it.
I did that, and I find with improv in general, there's a certain type of comedy that one has to bring.
Okay.
And it depends on those that you're partnered up with to make everything work, right? It's like a rotating wheel.
Yeah.
I would never consider myself a comedian.
Okay.
I've met people who are like, you're giving me comedian vibes, this and that. And it's like, I'm far from a comedian, you know? It's either you're with me or you're not when it comes to socializing, right? Like, it's just in terms of chemistry and this and that. And that's...
Okay, I get what you mean.
So when I was doing the level 2, I was like, you know what? Okay, I could see where these people will excel at because they have the same sense of humor.
Yeah.
My humor, it's more like James Franco, Seth Rogen, Pineapple Express, Superbad kind of thing. You know what I mean? That's my type of humor.
I get it.
Right? I dig that, but it just wasn't a match for me. So after level 2, I was just like, you know what? I already know how to improv.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't need to pursue it any further. A long form, I could practice that on my own. There are plenty of exercises you can do at home. It's amazing what you can find on Google.
It's
everything.
It's a
everything
wide
is there.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing.
So, so you've done improv.
Yeah.
Any no shows though, right? Just 50-50 and from there?
Well, so beforehand I was a part of a troupe beforehand, but also they had like shows, like student shows and stuff. I was doing a lot of classes with them beforehand, and
like consistently or just
consistently, pretty much. I think they had an older space back at Saint Laurent before the pandemic.
Yeah, so now they're in St. Henry.
Exactly, they're in St. Henry now.
Okay.
So since then, a couple of times they come out with like emails and everything where they're just like, oh, if anybody's open to a show here and that. So mostly some of those ones, but none recently. I think I've pivoted sort of thing from there into more focusing into acting, but improv still has a really nice place in my heart because it just
they're very welcoming. That's what I find, and it's like when you're with MTL Improv. For those of you that don't know about MTL Improv, if you attend their classes, you get free access to their shows, which is really amazing, and you're supporting the community of improv, and they do a fantastic job. They usually have shows on Friday, Saturdays, Sundays, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong with them, to be honest. I mean,
no, I think, and what's really nice is that also it's so welcoming and so opening, and I feel like that's so important for especially like just improv and acting just in general, where it's just like it welcomes everybody from every walk of life, which is
So when I started like the level 1 improv classes, you know, everyone claimed to be socially awkward.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're a liar. You're a freak, just like me. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way you're socially awkward. It's just they needed to find their herd of people.
Yeah.
And when you find that, then it's beautiful. It's just everything is so seamless and it's fun. And again, those instructors at MTL Improv, they're amazing. Sehar, James McGee.
Oh, yeah.
They're just such cool and down to earth people, and they're so genuine.
That's the thing. They're very genuine.
Yeah.
And I think they have a good way of like having the class at like a constructive environment and everything, you know, pinpointing things in here, but also getting people to sort of come out of their shells a little bit. Yeah. And I don't know, I think it's really important. It's really cool because again, everybody comes from different walks of life, and it's just, I think I remember I was talking to somebody and I was asking them just about like their profession and everything. And it turns out they're actually a lawyer. And
oh wow!
And I was like, oh wow, like how did you end up finding yourself here, kind of thing? And it just sort of took me off guard. And he's just like, yeah, it's something that I've been meaning to do here and there, and he feels like it also helps him a little bit in his profession as well, just like thinking on the fly, kind of thing.
Of course. Yeah.
But I don't know, it just sort of it caught me off guard because I didn't really think about that, you know, like maybe like doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, like coming into improv things. Yeah. But then again, like art is for everyone. Right? And just like finding a way to express
the way
themselves.
I see it too is you improv every single day. When you go to Tim Hortons, you don't know what that cashier's going to say, technically, right? You can assume, hi, welcome to Tim Hortons, how may I help you? But you might get a jerk, and it's like, oh my God, what did you just say? Why'd you wake up on the wrong side of the bed today? Right? So you just don't know. And like, we're improving right now. Well, I have no idea what you're going to say.
You don't know what's next.
Vice versa.
We don't know what's next.
Exactly. So you're improving whether you know it or not. Every
Yeah.
single day you go out in public, you're improvising. Someone passes by, brushes you don't know what they're going to say. Are you going to say something to them, vice versa? Every single moment.
I think that's
There's-
one of the great parts about it, which is just like the accepting of ideas and also just being able to adapt to everything. Like
Yeah.
whatever comes your way. Like if you get somebody that's woken up on the wrong side of the bed kind of thing, like you just adapt to it, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Improv style is a really good place in my heart because
Yeah.
it's just something that, I think it's transferable to everything pretty
Okay.
much. That's it.
So, where else have you trained here in Montreal for acting?
So for myself, I'm still training at the moment as well, but when I first was kind of coming back to it, so yeah, I did MTL Improv Variations Mile End, which is
I
improv.
haven't heard of that. Okay.
It's also another improv school in the Mile End, pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
It's like closer to the where the Ubisoft sort of like place is.
I do. Yeah, I've
Yeah, there you go.
auditioned
So
there
it's-
before.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you're right around there.
Nice.
But for more like acting classes, I did a program over at the House of Actors before.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Their full-time program, I think about like 2 or 3 years ago. And and since then, right now I've been taking classes at a place called Strayon,
Yeah.
pretty much. So that's been a little bit more consistent as of
Okay.
late.
Yeah.
And so just keeping things, on the top, like on top of things, keeping things refined, doing scene work here and there. pretty
Yeah.
much.
Okay. So, if you had to specialize in a role, like let's say, do you get typecast at all?
Half and half.
Okay,
But,
so
yeah.
half and half. What are some of those roles?
I think very much. I've been getting a little bit more. I guess like military-esque kind of thing.
Really? I'm surprised.
I'm surprised too.
Really?
I didn't really see
Oh,
that
yeah.
coming
I
my
don't
way
even
either.
see that. That's
Yeah.
far left field for
Yeah,
me.
that's it for me as well.
What?
Like, what are you talking about?
Okay.
But also I think other things, kind of like the boy next door kind of thing sometimes. Mostly
best
like,
friend kind of thing.
best friend kind of thing.
Intern,
Yeah,
whatever.
there you go.
Okay.
Also like a scientist or like engineer kind of person.
I
like
see it all,
stethoscope,
actually.
that, yeah.
I see
I get those
it all.
glasses on and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
there it goes over.
Okay. Really,
Yeah.
huh? Well, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with your hairstyle.
Hmm.
I find like when I don't have a beard, I
Yeah.
have a chiseled jaw, very
Yeah.
chiseled. I'll show you pictures after the
Yes.
interview. I get cast for like, I don't know, I've auditioned for like vampire, roles and werewolf roles, which are
Okay.
like really cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm so down for that. But then when I have the beard, it's like, yeah, you could probably be a Viking, because I have all the tattoos.
I see that. I see
Yeah,
that.
so it varies, but I'm like a chameleon. So
Okay.
depending on when my hair gets longer, it goes curly and wavy.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, it does. We're
wow.
super curly and wavy, which is crazy.
Okay.
And then, if I have just the mustache there, then it's like Tom Selleck and
Yes,
whatever else, right? Magnum PI. So I get a bunch of roles, but when I first started, I was always typecast as a bad guy.
As a
Soon
bad
as-
guy?
Yeah, as soon as they see the tattoo, yeah, you look like a villain.
Right.
You're a bad guy. And I'm like, I'm not a bad guy, but I'll embrace it. So it took me a while to want to embrace that, but I was like, the
Yeah.
universe is obviously telling me something, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to embrace it. Okay, cool. Let's do that. Boom. And then I've just learned to divert from that.
Okay.
And it was a struggle because I don't know if you've ever been through this, but it was a point where they're like, oh yeah, you're going to be like the good guy,
Right.
And I was like, how do I be the good guy?
You're supposed to be the bad guy the whole
And then I was
time.
like, oh yeah, just be me, and then just add like a little twist to it or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the key to it. So going back to that previous question of
Yeah.
a dream role, if I could cast you for the next 2 years in just one type of role or character, what would you choose?
Oof. That's a good question. That's a good one.
Something that you won't get sick of, though.
Something I won't get sick of. I think what's been fun as of late is actually it's kind of like some things that you don't see yourself, because you're saying like you didn't see yourself as a bad guy kind of thing, and then after that like everyone's like, oh yeah, you are, like they see you as that
Automatically.
and you're just like, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna accept this and see
Yep.
what happens from it kind of thing. So I think from there, the roles are a little bit more, I guess, like curious for me, also from other people saying things as well, is more along the things that are very like far away, I guess, from myself as I exist, like just in the day-to-day kind of thing. So, the roles that say, along the lines of like Jake Gyllenhaal, let's say like I don't know, like Nightcrawler, things like that.
Oh, I was gonna say that movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
What do you think of that movie?
That was something.
It was interesting.
That
Right?
was
Kind of
something-
twisted and sick.
Well, that's the thing, because you're watching it and you're just like, I guess I'm with him, but also I'm not really.
Yeah, because
with
he's
them.
arriving to the scene before everybody else, and then he's taking all the pictures. I'm like, you're kind of creepy, man. Like,
It feels off-putting, and then you're just like, but also you're kind of, you kind of get that bit of like sinking in like a connection to that, and you're just like, I don't know where I sit with that, which is kind of like what I enjoy with like art and media in general. Is like, I think no reaction is the worst thing, right?
yeah,
And
oh
I
yeah,
think,
oh yeah.
if it's a reaction, the positive or the negative, or even just an unsettling or uncomfortable sort of thing, I think that's art did what it was supposed to do, which is actually gain some sort of reaction from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very small cast for the movie too, and I think Jake Gyllenhaal, he was the producer of it, so he funded it himself, and which is why the cast was so small.
Yeah.
And I think there was like 3 actors or 4 actors in total.
Pretty
And,
much.
yeah, it was all about him, and there was like someone in the room with him, I think, and there was like a reporter, and then there was like another actor or 2, and that was it. It was just
That's
a bunch
it.
of extras who were corpses on the ground, right?
It wasn't,
But-
it was just like, I think it's one of the things too, it's just like, I think having something that's very tight knit and just like very simple and not having anything too like overly complicated, I guess, because like we can have glamorous sort of like shots of like CGI things blowing up and all that stuff, which is great, and it's all action packed and everything. But I feel like there's something to be said if a film could be done, just let's say in a room with like two or three people, a very small knit thing, and to have something that sort of like comes up from it,
Impactful.
There you go,
Right.
kind of thing.
So are those if that's the role that you would choose if you had to do it for like, let's say the next 2 years, would be something similar to Nightcrawler
Or like I guess like Mads Mikkelsen's like I guess like Hannibal kind of thing. I don't know if you've seen that one before.
Of course, I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
those
love to do
ones-
Hannibal.
Yeah, those ones are.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of, I think it's interesting and it's curious
So
because
you want to do like a serial killer?
I guess so, pretty much.
Yeah.
I guess, but it's like it's a curious sort of bit because you kind of just like look into it. I think there's one way to play it very stereotypically, and then there's another way to play it, I feel like, where it's just like
Likability.
well, the likability, I guess, is the best word we can use. Where you're just like, again, kind of like that unsettling bit where you're just like you like them, but also you don't because of what's happening, and so it's just like the conflict that's
That's
there, kind of
why,
thing.
like, to be, if you were to audition, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to think outside of the box, and I'm going to make this character likable and relatable to the viewers. That even though I'm doing this sick and twisted stuff, you're still going to like me somehow. You're going to be like, I like you, but you're still messed up, but I like you.
Yeah, but I like you.
Right? It's a
It's like,
love-hate relationship.
Like,
And that's the key to those darker roles, is finding that relatability to the viewers.
Yeah, that
Right? Because
yeah,
a lot of people, they'll do like the cliche sort of audition.
yeah.
Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. It's boring, man. Think outside of the box. 90% of the actors are just going to do the whole cliche thing.
The
You
exact
know what
same
I
thing.
mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think like a lot of I think audiences have gotten a lot like smarter over time, especially with just like
I hope so.
it's just like
Otherwise, they're just NPCs.
well, exactly. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
But no, definitely, it's just like, again, like those sort of like caricatured sort of bits where it's just like, yeah, whatever, that way. I think that's like been done that, been there, done that kind of thing. Versus like now it's a little bit more like sophisticated. They watch it with a little bit more, I guess, like attention and a lot more. I don't know the word for it, but I guess like it's that connection, that relatedness part to it, where it's just like it's not just a front kind of thing,
No,
but
they're
it's like there's
connecting
a
now
thing, there's a human to it.
On an
pretty much.
emotional level. And,
Yeah,
you
there you
know,
go.
there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's key. That's why you watch a comedy show or a horror movie. It's to de-stress from everyday life stress.
Well, that's
Right?
the thing.
So you escape. I'm watching this show called The Boys and Invincible.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't heard that one.
Okay,
The Boys.
Invincible is a fantastic anime. It's in the Boys universe. It's with
Oh, yeah?
Omni-Man. You know Stephen Yeun?
Yes. Yes.
He's the main character, and J.K. Simmons, the guy who's like, Parker.
Yeah.
He plays
No way.
Omni-Man.
Okay.
And it's a fantastic and dark series, just like The Boys. It's all gory and this and that, but it's set in the same universe. And they're talking about doing a crossover with Homelander and Omni-Man. And I'm like,
I think that would be. I don't think my heart can handle that.
No, because Omni-Man, he's like a vermite. So
Okay.
he's like this indestructible superhero who, there's one vermite per planet,
Yeah.
and their task is to sort of protect the planet, but then eventually weed out the weak people by killing them, and
Okay.
then taking over that planet. And then having vermites take over the planet. That's sort of their mission goal. I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay,
for you,
got it.
But I highly recommend it, and obviously The Boys is just fantastic.
Well, they're coming out with a new season, so yeah.
Did you watch it?
Not yet. I'm caught up to 3, but like not having.
I watched the first episode of season 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Homelander and his drinking milk and
Yeah.
I love him. I have friends who they're like, yeah, you have like the personality of like Homelander in the Deep, and I'm like,
Thank you.
yeah. I'll just start smiling. You're the hero.
Yeah, exactly. You.
Yeah, exactly. So, totally recommend it.
Yes. 10 out of 10.
Let's talk about superhero stuff. I know it's very cliche. I know it's
Okay.
oversaturated, whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If you could choose any superhero role, what would you choose?
Any superhero role?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that actually.
Yeah, so like for example, like Jake Gyllenhaal, he does Mysterio.
He does,
I actually really liked him as Mysterio.
It was well done,
And it's
yeah.
too bad that he ended up
Not existing.
not existing after,
Afterwards, yeah.
And I really enjoyed his performance in that role, and that caught me off guard.
Right?
Yeah. Because I was like, what, out of all characters, Mysterio?
I kind of like when I first saw the trailer, I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? And then it gets sort of like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess in
It
terms
could
of
be DC or Marvel, anything, whatever you want, even the Boys universe if
yeah,
you want.
even the voice. I guess in terms of a superhero, I guess the one thing that pops up maybe, I guess like first thing that comes up I guess is like Iron Man, but nobody can. It's hard to live up to what Downey Jr. has done. That's the thing. It's hard to live up to that. So,
It's impossible. I think it's
don't
almost
think so.
impossible. It's one of
I
those
think it
roles
is.
where it can never just be overtaken.
Oh,
Even,
yeah, that's
let's
it.
say 50 years from now, someone tries to do it,
I don't think so. That's the thing. I think he's nailed it so well that
they're
it's
going to just
like,
AI.
this is face. This is face on everything. Kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I think so, because like that's one of the perfect casts.
He's become the face of Iron Man. pretty
Yeah,
much at this point.
just so iconic. When you think of Iron Man, that's his face and the weird goatee thing, and
Yeah,
his
that's it.
personality. He's all quick and witted and this and that, right?
He's perfect.
Yeah, so you'd still want to try for Iron Man, or
Give it an honest shot, but because I don't know too much about superheroes per se. I think I only know like the main ones, like let's say like Spider-Man, Batman, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I feel like
Superman.
I feel like Batman was well done as well.
I know,
Christian
that
Bale's,
one
but like I
cannot
can't,
take that.
you can't do that. Just
No.
can't do that. But I would say just playing around with like Iron Man, I'd still want to play around with that.
yeah, just playing around with it.
That's
yeah,
it, playing
okay, so
around with
Iron
it.
Man.
But yeah, what about you? Which one would you say?
If I had to choose one, it would be more of a villain. Actually,
We're right back to
so Carnage.
Carnage.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Woody Harrelson, he's a fantastic actor, but
Yeah.
he missed the X
Oh, yeah?
in terms of hitting that mark for Carnage. I didn't see any relatability to it. It was a very
Okay.
bland character, which is unfortunate because I didn't connect to it whatsoever. I didn't see the true darkness of what Carnage is. And that part of that is humanizing him, even though he's this notorious serial killer.
Well, yeah, there you go.
I don't know if you've read the comics about Carnage, but
Not so much.
there's a lot of sick and twisted stuff. So
Yeah.
if I were to do like a Carnage origin movie, I would start off with, okay, I'm Cletus. This is my girlfriend. I fall in love. Typical love story.
Okay.
She ends up dying, and that's the trigger that twists within my character to become a serial killer by killing the people that murdered my wife.
Yeah.
And then he gets a craving for it, and then the symbiote, Carnage, gets attracted to him because he's evil. He has a seed of evil within him. And then he becomes one with Carnage, and they start causing carnage everywhere,
Carnage,
right?
pretty much, yeah.
So I would want to do something like that,
Okay.
is to really just humanize him, make him true and genuine,
Yeah.
show his, not just his heart, but his soul.
Less one-dimensional and more three-dimensional kind of thing.
Oh yeah, even four if
four- yeah,
possible.
four-dimensional.
Yeah, I would try to make it as interesting as possible, and I think it's very unfortunate that he missed the target on that.
Okay. I haven't actually seen it myself, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed at all. I kind of watched it, and I'm like, I love Venom, I love Carnage, but
There was something that was...
it's not doing it for me, man. Yeah.
Is it...
yeah.
Well, what about Tom Hardy?
I like him.
Yeah.
I thought the first. I don't know. Have you seen the first Venom?
I've seen like a little bit of it.
Okay, I think he does a fantastic job,
Yeah.
but I think it's come to the point where when there's the second Venom and even the third one, that they're trying too hard now. You
Yeah.
can tell, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of these superhero movies, the origin movies, are the best ones.
Yes.
And then it's just all about oversaturating these movies because it's output now. Oh my God, what a big success.
It's the next one. It's the next one.
Yeah. And it's just so rushed, and you can tell.
Well, yeah, you can get that as you're going along. With
Yeah.
it.
So it's super unfortunate. Let's talk more about you.
Sure. Yeah.
Special skills.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you would like to promote yourself about in terms of special skills? So it could be like hatchet throwing, accents, whatever.
Yeah. I would say hatchet throwing. I've only done that once, so I can't say that. Did not get hurt during it though. But I would say mostly martial arts. So I do a lot of kickboxing, and
No
so
way.
I think that's one of the things I guess you could say as a special skill. I would say biking, but that's just,
still a skill.
that's a skill. I
Not
don't think
everyone
it's-
can bike. Look
yeah.
on the street.
That's fair. That's actually fair.
Right.
That's actually fair.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of that, I think I do play instruments here and there. I think.
Which instruments do you play?
So I do play. I'm learning the ukulele a little bit, but
That's random. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Cool.
the ukulele is kind of fun. Just that little thing you just sort of.
Adam
bring
Sandler,
with you.
51st Dates.
there you go.
want to find
There
your
you go.
Halle Berry.
That's why I'm walking the streets. That's what I'm doing. I'm walking the streets with the
Yeah.
ukulele. But I've been picking up the guitar a little bit more, so that's something that's also been fun. But I guess in terms of like special skills that I'm slowly want to
I
develop.
mean,
a
what
little more.
you would consider a special skill, right? It's not
That is true.
necessarily like, oh, you need to be proficient in this and this. It's
Yeah.
something that you would find interesting or special to you and that you
Okay.
enjoy thoroughly. Like it could
Yeah.
be, it could be anything.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to that, I would say like voices. I'm working on that.
So like
Voices.
voice over cartoony voices, or what kind of voices?
I would say more just like trying for like I'm working towards like cartoony voices, but I'm working on that.
Those are hard.
That's it. I've taken like a couple of classes. I've seen other people at work at it, and it's just like they're phenomenal. Like I was at like Triple Threat Academy, and like they had that workshop, and those who actually had those cartoon voices, like those are things that definitely would like love to work on those days. But yeah, I guess in terms of that, I guess like accents here and there.
Any accent in particular?
I would say nothing in particular that I can really be like, let's say, concrete on. I think for now, working a little bit on like the Boston accent. That's
yeah.
Working
Mark
on
Wahlberg
that.
style.
Yeah, that's it. Just straight to the pod, the departed. Just to the departed.
Have you ever seen Ted?
Yes.
Okay, so there's
Yes.
a dance scene with Giovanni Ribisi where he's like dancing to the music and he has like the straw on him. He's such a creep and so weird, but I love it. And then when I was searching on Google about that dance, he does the same dance in A Million Ways to Die in the
does he?
West.
Really?
And he sits there and he's doing the thing with the straw. And I'm like, oh my God. No.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
No,
fantastic. So
Ted.
Boston accent. Boston, right?
Trying it.
Okay.
But Ted was a great movie. Ted 2 was also pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like,
I
when
loved
Liam
it.
Neeson came in.
Have you seen the series?
Sorry?
Have you seen the series?
The whole
The TED series?
So
So they have a TV show now for TED.
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
Didn't know
I haven't
that.
seen it. I think it's on Hulu.
Okay, did not know that, no.
Yeah.
No,
Apparently
no.
it's pretty good.
Okay. Well,
So
we
maybe
that-
you could start
there's
binging that.
There's
as
a
soon
couple
as
of
you
things
got
I
it.
have The Boys and then, that.
Yeah,
so
I know.
a couple of things on the list. Well, no, I guess, when it comes to those special skills per se, I guess those were pretty much like some of the main things. I guess I'll say, cooking is also one of them, but that's also just in my opinion, just a skill in general.
Well, it's a life skill.
Yeah, it's life skill. So
It's like
sort of
Sims. You're playing Sims and you get the cooking trait and you start getting that bar up.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I just do it because I'm hungry. That's all it is.
Yeah. I've done like method acting for the Irish accent for like the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
I fooled everybody in public. They all thought I was from Ireland.
No
And I'm
way.
like, no way. This is so cool. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is like really good,
That's good.
So
That's
as
a
soon as I
compliment
did
on you.
that, I'm like, okay, I don't need to practice it. And now it's just literally from watching a movie with Jamie Dornan.
Okay.
He's in a series called The Tourist. I
Yeah.
watched it. I started listening. I started imitating him, and then
Yeah.
that's how I learned it.
Okay.
No professional classes, nothing. I have an
Yeah.
ear for accents and things like
Yeah.
that. So It's a lot of fun, man.
Just playing around with all those things, just like listening to it, and also just like
Even by yourself, and you're like, I'm not crazy, but this is what a lot of actors do, right? It's like you kind of talk to yourself, or you go in the mirror and you do self monologues and whatever.
You gotta practice. That's
It's sort of, the reality of it.
Well, yeah,
right?
no, that's it. It's just like it's one of those things like we can always just think about it, but if you just think about it, nothing really ends up happening. It's just about the doing of it, right?
Yeah.
The actions of it, how it feels in your body, whether physical or even just like voicing or even just faces or just things like that in general. I think that's important. But
so I would like to actually dig in and find out some of your preparation process.
Okay.
So in terms of, if you're willing to share with the viewers and stuff, do you have any tips and tricks that you can give for up and coming actors or even seasoned actors in terms of like memorizing lines, preparing for a role, all that kind of stuff? Feel free to elaborate.
I would say, I think the main thing that I would say is actually something that a coach of mine recently said, which is just like, when it comes to, let's say like very, characters that say that you wouldn't necessarily know or wouldn't necessarily feel that you connect to, let's say something that's like outside of your own.
I had plenty of those for auditions.
Right,
I'm like,
exactly. You're like, what is this kind of thing? But what's really funny is that I think one of the main things to really keep in mind with those things is that it's the actor approaching it, but it's the actor like judging it, which I feel like is one of those things that if we end up judging it too harshly, or if we end up actually judging just in general, I think we remove ourselves from the human component of it, right?
Yeah.
Which is the relatability. And so I feel like that when we start judging it, when we're looking at it, it becomes a little bit more one-dimensional versus like if you really sort of go into it and we accept and we look at the person or the character as like a human, as everybody is, that really gives that connectedness, that relatedness, and that three-dimensional sort of space to it. So I think as like a main one thing that I would think, even for myself, it's just like, don't go in sort of judging what this character is. Like, sure, this is probably not how you would deal with a breakup, or this is not how you would deal with like this like meeting or whatever it is. Yeah. But like they have, let's say, roots in that in their own sort of way. So I feel like that's probably one of the main things that I'd definitely point out there.
Okay.
But yeah, I think when it comes to, say, like memorizing lines, there are some ways that people do it. I've done it in the past where it's just like actually having, if you want to like rogue memorize lines, it's just like the lines itself. If you just put the first letter of each word in the line.
I've heard about that. You're the second person mentioning this to me.
I've done it before. I've slowly strayed away from it now. But if you do want to rogue memorize things, I think that's a good way to go. But I don't know. I find that when it comes to lines here and there, I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that like these are things like as we're talking, right, in general, like these are things that pop up sort of randomly and sort of like organically, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't memorize all of this or anything like that, right?
I hope not.
I hope not to.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to memorize, and a lot of it's filler words anyway.
Exactly.
But one of the things I think what's very important is just like when we're reading through it, again, to not judge it too harshly or not judge it at all, to be quite honest. And also, as we're going through with it, really just like taking a step back and like trying to really imagine ourselves like in that scene and really being a part of it. And trying to really connect to, let's say, what are like the intentions of that person, that character, for saying these things and all of that. And I think when we're able to connect those two together, the words aren't really things that we have to think about to get. They're just things that come from within themselves, and it just pops out.
It's very organic.
There you go.
Right.
That's one of the things. So I think those are the two main things, even just for myself that I've recently switched. I think those are the two main things that have been coming up more recently. I definitely would.
What about advice to an actor who's wanting to, an aspiring actor who's like, I want to try out acting, but what are some of tips that you can give them before they even step into their first acting class? Is there any advice where it's like, like, for example, my first 2 acting classes, I had so much anxiety. I was sweating like crazy. So nervous, because I was in fear of being judged in front of my peers. And then after that second acting class, I was like, everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I battle with anxiety a lot.
Yeah.
And, I suffered for a little bit, like 6 months. It was awful.
Okay.
Right?
Like
And
it was
then
6 months, like after, like during the classes?
During the classes.
Yeah, okay,
For like
okay,
first 6 months, just sweating. Oh, thank God it was like 40 degrees outside. I was like, yeah, it's really hot, guys.
Yeah, it's that thing. It's not
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, there's no AC in here. Oh God. Right. But it was just anxiety. And you know, how can you encourage or give advice to someone who might be going through that, or someone who wants to do acting but they're afraid? Is there any advice they can give them? Like, it's gonna be okay, or something simple, complex.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, anxiety is one of those things that can, as it keeps on rolling, it can keep on rolling, and then it's a ball that just like goes and goes and goes. But definitely, I think one of the things that even you mentioned was just like everyone is sort of a little bit in the same boat, but also, I think the judgment part really. Not just for the self, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot when you go up for the first time. You're like, oh, am I doing things right, or how is this coming off, or, and I feel like you want to like have things done like a certain way, and a lot of that, and trying to like the control of it all.
Yeah.
I would definitely say getting into it, I think like being less harsh on ourselves just in general. I think that
completely agree. It's a good life lesson.
I think it's good,
Yeah.
not just for this, but yeah, just in general.
Everything in life. Yeah.
Very important, and sometimes too, just the control aspect too. I feel like the idea, let's say like, oh, if I enter the scene, I have to put my hand here and do this and that, and stage directions and stuff. Like, yes, follow them, but really just like don't like plan everything out kind of thing, because I think that's the lessening of control, which leaving a little bit more
You're
open,
nailing it, because I used to plan in my head before I'd sleep how the scene was supposed to go, and then
same
that was the biggest mistake of my life.
right.
The best thing for you to do is memorize your lines and go with the flow and with your scene partner.
Yeah.
Or partners, whoever's in it.
Exactly. And
because you don't know how they're going to react. You don't know their actions. But if you're going to pre-plan and set something in your mind, it's a big mistake, because you're going to be like a rock, and you'll be like, you're supposed to do this, and it's like, no, you're not.
you're supposed to be here when I'm here.
Yeah, because
like,
it's in my mind.
And then, but you're not here, so now what are we doing?
Exactly. Now I've already lost my train of thought. The lines
and now you're all in
fumble.
here, and it's just like...
Exactly. So I don't plan the actions. I let it just come out the way it's going to come out, and it's either it's for the producer and director or it's not.
Well, that's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing.
So I'll memorize the lines, no problem.
Worst comes to worst, I just say do another take. That's it. Worst comes to
if
worst.
they're nice.
If they're nice. But no, I think that's one of the things. Let's say in the control, because even for myself, I think sometimes doing a scene, I was like, oh, I have to put my hand here, or this is how I rehearsed it.
Overthinking.
And let me go with the blocking of it, and then I feel like once you start getting into that, I think that's a lot more of like the controlling, but also like the executive functioning of just like doing things. And I feel like once you're there, I think it's the actor trying to control things, and then the character that you're trying to play has no room to play anymore, because they're not there. It's just you kind of doing these things,
Pre-planning.
Exactly, pre-planning everything.
It's like comparing it to cooking. When you're cooking and you saute, you have to do it a certain way every single time.
Yeah.
That's already pre-planned. You know how to saute, right?
Yeah.
But it's like trying to cook on like a wildfire. You can't plan that.
You cannot plan
the temperature,
that.
you have to rotate, you have to do certain things.
You just have to adapt to it, pretty much. Just adapting to it.
And that's what it is. So you nailed it. I think a lot of it is don't pre-plan. Just memorize your lines, know who your character is in terms of emotions, the before the scene, and what you want your scene partner to say. And that's it. Just let everything else come out the way it's supposed to come out.
I think it has a lot of it's like very reminiscent of just like improv in general, right? And you get up, and it's just like you just adapt to whatever's happening at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things also that's ringing in my head a little bit is again, something that one of my coaches told me as well, which is when you're in a scene, right? Very high, some like high emotional scenes, or if you're just like, sadness, anger, breakup, like all of those ones. I think one of the things that's important is like, when we're thinking the actor will never go there, but the character will.
True.
And so it's like, because I think us as like a, this is a weird, not a weird, but it's just like, it's kind of odd in its own ways. We're just like, for ourselves, like we would never, let's say, go into that direction, just like that intense amount of like sorrow and everything, especially in front of like cameras and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a certain thing to be said about, let's say, if you really have the character itself, like they're not doing it for cameras. This is their life in that sort of scene, right?
Yeah.
So it's not
their moment.
It's their moment. There you go. And it's not yourself. It's just them in that. So I think that has been something that I've been trying to come to terms with, and it's
You're bringing up something actually very interesting. I auditioned earlier in the year for a feature film in Toronto to play a character for the lead role where he found out he was diagnosed with stage 5 cancer.
Okay.
And then he decides to live his best life.
Right.
With his wife, right? But they had obviously pre-plans of having kids, a family together, a future.
Yeah.
So when I auditioned for that, the monologue was super intense. I was like, I've never been in a situation where I've had that type of news before.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was a challenge, just trying to dive into what that mindset was.
Right.
But when I did my research, I happened to stumble upon 2 strangers within the week prior to the audition of both of them sort of mentioned to me like, oh yeah, I had a friend who passed away from terminal cancer.
Okay.
And it was just by chance that I met these 2 strangers at a coffee shop. I was like, no way, I'm going to not be intrusive, but I'm going to inquire subtly about how their friend received that news.
Yeah.
One of them told me that their friend actually took it really well. When they received the terminal ill diagnostics, they said they took it so well because they appreciated the honesty. So they saw it as an honest moment. Okay, thank you, doctor, for giving me the truth. Yeah. Now I know how much time I have left. I'm going to go enjoy it. And they took it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Then I met someone who, she's related to my sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. And her mother was like, it was a tough pill to swallow when I found out that news.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting automatically, because then I was like, well, never thought that someone would take it in a positive way, but that makes it very interesting.
Right.
So I kind of went that road. I didn't book the part, but because I decided to take a risk.
Well, it's
right.
It's something that it's out of the box, as we were saying before. But it's just like it sort of, because when you think of that news, you think of almost stereotypically. It is horrific news, but stereotypically as a reaction, just like
sad and depressed and whatever else.
And all of that. But then to see the opposite of that, you're just like, if it seems foreign, right? It seems foreign, but it's totally
valid.
It's totally valid. That's a thing. And
I found that very interesting that I met 2 of those individuals within a week before that audition. So it was like yin and yang, the devil and the angel. Who am I going to listen to, right? And I ended up listening to the angel. I never got the part. So.
But I imagine it would stick out though, because like in terms of, let's say, again, how many self-tapes or how many auditions and everything that they've seen, I imagine the choices that are being made, sometimes they converge onto one end versus the other.
Yeah.
And having something a little bit more, let's say, original, I would say it sticks out a little bit. But just the timing of it all, that's fascinating.
Crazy.
That's fascinating.
It was very it was such a coincidence. I don't know. The acting gods were like, we're going to give you some information, and I tried. That's all you can do in those moments, right? It's sort of, have you taken risks before in auditions?
I think at this point, yeah.
Yeah? Have they failed miserably where you could admit to us, Can you tell us a story?
I wish I could. Nothing comes to mind right now.
Okay.
I really wish I could.
Drawing blanks.
Drawing some blanks.
Okay.
But no, I do think that it's just... Because that spectrum of, let's say, the emotions that you can have, like one versus the other, I think it sort of explains doesn't explain, but it just describes a little bit about like the human condition in general, right? It's just like, I don't know. There's not just one way. There's a whole slew of them, and there isn't really just like it's not like a rational, logical kind of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how I ended up here, but it's just like I don't know. It's a little bit of everything, and all of it makes sense.
Oh yeah, I know.
All of it.
Before we wrap up, I'll just say one thing. So going and thinking outside of the box, one audition that I did a couple years ago was an audition to portray a guy who was depressed and he was going to go shave his head in the mirror and shave his body hair and this and that, or some nudity, whatever, you know?
Okay, yeah.
So I did the audition, And I was like, you know what, I'm going to think outside of the box. Depression, it doesn't show necessarily in words, it shows in facial expressions. So literally, and I don't know if this is a big miss or far left field on my end, but for the audition, I was like, you know what, I'm going to start with just showing a content expression.
Okay.
And throughout a minute and a half, it's going to go depressed to crying without even talking. Because that's usually how depression is, right? One starts off happy, and then they look in the mirror, and that depression starts to hit, and the emotion changes, and until you have tears and whatever else happens.
Yep.
I decided to do it. The casting director was like, I loved your choice. I'm going to go forward to it. I never booked the part. But I decided, you know what, I'm just going to try just for the heck of it. And
something new, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I think, didn't book the part. That's fine. But also, it's just like...
took a risk.
You took a risk. You take a risk and you stuck out. And I think that's something that is important too, because just like they'll definitely remember that.
Yeah.
They'll definitely remember something that's very unique. And I think if anything, that's probably like one of the main things too, is just like all this is just really putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And like even if you do the best, let's say audition, the best thing and all of that, you might even not have the right face for it. Or
I know, that's what it comes down to. It's always the looks. It really is.
But it's like all that to say is like you just be as you are and do your best that you can do, and then from there it's don't take it personal. It's just the way it is. Sometimes.
All right. So last quick question before we wrap this up. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? In terms of acting career, do you see yourself here in Montreal, Toronto, elsewhere? Career-wise, where do you see yourself?
I would see myself. I would see myself in. I have relatives also in Vancouver, so I would see myself over there in a 5 years time.
You seem like a guy who would go to Vancouver. Okay.
But yeah, I definitely like. I definitely love Montreal. There's nothing like I love everything about it, but I feel like for myself, Vancouver is definitely one of those things that I want to try out for at least like a year or two, just to see how it is, whether it's like the same or different, because obviously there's a lot more opportunities that come over there. But no, when it comes to that, really, I think I do still want to do like a lot of these, like some short films and stuff. I think those are very fun because they're, it's just like an honest expression, very independent sort of thing, instead of having things that are a little bit more, let's say, not refined, but a lot more like, like bigger, I guess, if I were to say anything. But no, definitely from like in 5 years' time, you might see me pretty much perusing around maybe Stanley Park and things.
Nice. Okay. Nice. Okay.
But,
I think the key here is just follow your heart. Let it guide you where it's going to guide you in terms of your career. Embrace it and just have fun with it.
I think having fun is the most important part, and not judging yourself too hard. I think also.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's it for the show, guys. Thank you for watching Rising Stars. I'm your interim host, Sean Watt. Again, this production sponsored by Urban Eats MTL. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here. Sean. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you very
much. What a
much.
great time. I'll see you guys on the next episode.